Welcome to another episode 2 of Tales of a 50-Year-Old Gamer. And something I've been thinking about, I don't know, just kind of hit my mind, was the arcades back in when I was a kid. The arcade games at 7-Eleven used to have. They used to have like the top arcade games. First, let me say something. We had a 7-Eleven probably about 6 blocks away from our school. So every time we would get out of school, we'd head over to 7-Eleven, get a pop, get some candy or some chips or hot dog or whatever. Kind of became like a hangout joint. I'm sure the 7-Eleven employees really love that. But it became like a hangout for us kids, I was probably anywhere. This started, I think, from when I was like 11 or 12 up to probably about 14 years old. And they used to have a room, like when you would walk in the 7-Eleven, to your left, the register thing is there in the middle. And like to your left was like the magazines. If you kept going straight, there was this little dark room. And they would usually have 3 to 4 arcade coin-op machines, along with maybe one pinball machine. But they would change them out every so often. And it was really cool, and they always usually had top newer games. That was the first place I remember playing Super Sprint by Atari, a great fun racing game. And you could play, I want to say 3 players or maybe 4 players at the same time, and they all had steering wheels and gas pedals and stuff on them, and that was a big hit. But the big one was Double Dragon. And this had to have been 87? 86, somewhere around that time. I'm not exactly 100% sure. And it's the first time I ever played, seen, or heard of Double Dragon. And that was just like, that was the hit. 2-player at the same time. Billy and Jimmy Lee saving the girl. But it was just kick-ass fighting action, man. It was just a great game. And I mean, that was like the hit. I mean, this is like this little room, and you'd have like 15 kids, 10 kids, all cramped up in there. And I remember, like I said, getting in the way of the customers and being loud. And I'm sure it was a pain in the ass now as an adult. You realize it was a pain in the ass for the 7-Eleven employees, but that's what they did. 7-Eleven used to always have arcades, and then that just kind of went away. I don't know. I guess arcades kind of died out, with the better console systems. And, I kind of quit going to 7-Eleven by the time I was probably 15 or 16. I just didn't go to 7-Eleven. So I don't know exactly when the arcades in our area of 7-Elevens, but there was like 3 different 7-Elevens. We had one that was right by the school and close to my house. And then there was 7-Elevens on other parts of town. And when I went in those, they had arcades too. So I'm guessing like all 7-Elevens or most 7-Elevens had arcades. But anyways, the Double Dragon thing, that was like the big deal, man, for us. Like I said, it was 1986 or 87. So I had to have been, 84, I was 10. So 12 to 13 years old, something like that. Grab us some Garbage Pail Kids stickers and a slushie. Even I wasn't big on the Slurpee slushy things. I'd get a pop, some food, play arcade. It was pretty sweet, And I guess the story I want to talk about, besides actually 7-Eleven having arcade games, and had a pretty sweet little arcade, which was that Double Dragon. That's where I was introduced to it. It's still one of my favorite games to this day, even on the, NES, the Genesis version, the Sega Master System version. Double Dragon's always been really cool. And I like seeing all the newer Double Dragon games coming out, like that came out like on Switch and stuff. It just kind of takes me back. And I own all those. Those are like must-have purchases. But Double Dragon one day got replaced, because the arcade games would change. I don't know. I don't, as a kid, I don't remember. I'm guessing maybe every 3 months, every 4 months or something, the arcade games would get replaced. And Double Dragon got replaced by Vigilante, which is another side-scrolling fighter game, a game by Irem. And while it's an okay game on its right, it's no Double Dragon. And needless to say, we were pissed. And we're like yelling at the cashier, "Where's Double Dragon? Bring back Double Dragon." And as a kid, you don't realize that, the poor clerk working the register at 7-Eleven has nothing to do with what arcade games are being rotated in there. I'm sure 7-Eleven themselves probably had nothing to do with it. I mean, it was probably where they hired a company that leased these arcade machines to them, and they would come in and change them up every so often. And man, Vigilante is, I mean, now that you go back and look at it or play it, it's not a bad game, but there's no Double Dragon. That was something that always hit me about 7-Eleven, to the point where, like, some of us even kind of quit going to 7-Eleven because they took Double Dragon out. And I remember being like, "How dare you? Where's Double Dragon? Bring Double Dragon back." And the lady or guy, I don't even remember if it was a lady. I want to say it was, but I don't remember. Probably was like, "We have nothing to do with that now. Bugger off, you little bastards," or something. But 7-Elevens, man, they used to have this. Ours was pretty cool. Like I said, you'd walk in and the room was completely dark, and for some reason it had like shag carpeting on the walls, like from the floor to the ceiling was shag carpet, and then the floor itself was just the normal tile flooring, like throughout the store. And it was just like, I don't know, man. It was cool. It was almost like it wasn't dark, like dark light lit or nothing, but it was just like a dark room, and all the arcade machines just lit it up with the screens and their marquees and stuff. And it's kind of in my head now, thinking back, it's like magical. I'm back then, it probably wasn't. It was just a dark room with arcade machines in it, but it's all you need, really. And you got candy and pop and arcade games and some of your friends there. That's all you need back then when you're 12, 13 years old. But I just remember it was like, how could they replace Double Dragon with Vigilante? Like, these guys are idiots. They're fools, It was a big deal. That I still remember it. But yeah, they replaced Double Dragon with Vigilante, and I'm sure, I don't know how much profits. I don't know if 7-Eleven probably got paid the same amount no matter how much those games made. It was probably the deal they had with whatever company brought those games in. But I know definitely there was a lot of money sunk into Double Dragon, and I know Vigilante couldn't have got hit that much because nobody was playing Vigilante that much. We played it like a couple times, and it was like, we're done. I mean, there was other games there too, but Double Dragon was the shit. Double Dragon was it. Double Dragon was just, that was to us back then. Double Dragon was it. And then, and then, I mean, like I said, 7-Eleven, man, that was like the joint there for a while, for a few years. Arcade games and junk food and magazines. I'm grabbing Mad magazines and Cartoon, if you guys remember Cartoon magazine, with the cars and the trucks and stuff, and looking in wrestling magazines. And it was just a great little cramped hangout, which I'm sure we were nuisances and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys that are around my age or younger, I'm sure 7-Eleven had arcade games for several years, because I mean, it was kind of like those 3 years, 4 years were like 2-3 years maybe were like the pinnacle of when we went to 7-Eleven to play arcade and hang out. And after that, it just kind of died out. Plus, we switched schools. We went from elementary school to middle school, and middle school was farther away from the 7-Eleven. So that's another reason too why I quit going personally, because I wasn't going out that way anymore. But what a fun time. But still, how could you replace Double Dragon with Vigilante? That's sacrilege almost. But yeah, I think that'll be the title of this podcast. 7-Eleven replaced Double Dragon with Vigilante? Really? So anyway, just a little thought I had. Figure I'd do a little talk about it, little podcast. And if you guys got any memories of 7-Eleven having arcade games and having a little tiny arcade room, which later on, years later, I went into that same 7-Eleven, And that arcade room was walled up and just had a regular door. Before it was like a big square opening. Now it was just like walled up and had like a door for like employees only or something. So I don't know, maybe they made it a break room or a storage room, or I don't know, maybe they put a toilet in there and made it a employee restroom, or who knows. I guess if it was big enough, you could have got like a table and a refrigerator and microwave and made a little employee room or something. I don't know. It's probably storage rooms, probably where they kept the mops and brooms and shit, or back stock or something, made a little stock room out of it or something. But yeah, 7-Eleven arcades and Double Dragon.